Blessings to the spirits of these places, the lands, the water, the plants, and the animals, where you are, where I am. Thank you for holding space for us. Blessings to the original inhabitants of these places. For me, it's the Ohlone, the Yelamu, the Ramaytush. May your descendants know joy, justice, sovereignty in their land back in this lifetime and all future lifetimes. Blessings to the one consciousness, the spider webs, the mycelium that tie us all together. Blessings to my ancestors, guides, guardians, and divine forces, and yours, all of the people who are listening. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for holding space for us and supporting us through our journey. Blessings to the black flame, spirits of anarchy, revolution, and change. Blessings to the mothers, the moon, the earth, the abundance, the rebirth, the constant change. Blessings to all who turn their attention this way. May the container be held while we transmit this energetic reading, and may nothing distract or distract us. May the truest information rise up in the clearest way possible. Blessings, Ashe, Aho. Welcome. Oh, another week, another podcast. So I have been witnessing in myself, in the people around me, a broad spectrum of hopelessness, hopefulness, suffering, and not as much joy. We find moments of joy and gratitude, and I'm extremely appreciative of that. But lots of waves of sadness, hopelessness. I'm just going to talk about myself primarily because that's what I have been going through. And that's what I have been going through all my life, and maybe many lifetimes if you listen to the episode before this. So, suffering and hopelessness are a constant battle for me personally. And really, at the same time, I'm also very motivated, highly motivated to make this world a better place, to experience the beauty and love of community and trust and gratitude and abundance of having all that we need. I believe in the possibility and necessity of mutual aid and solidarity and finding ways to understand each other and finding ways to care for each other and create a hospitable living environment and ecosystem around us. I'm heavily invested in this. It's very important to me that I be a part of that process for humanity, regardless of whether I actually see it in my lifetime or not, is not really necessary. And I think that it has to be acknowledged that a lot of people who do a lot of fighting for a lot of things don't actually see the ramifications of that in their lifetime. But I also do believe that we are energetic beings that continue on past just this one physical body. And so if we are energetic beings that continue on in one way or another because our energy continues on, then we do, to some extent, or we may, to some extent, get to witness the fruits of the labor of what we do in this life. Now, the thing about it is that, again, speaking from my personal perspective and also what I have witnessed in a lot of the people that I care about and work with and love, is that we are constantly battling this shortage of energy. That may reflect itself in different ways. It may come out as physical pain. It may come out as emotional pain, mental pains, and disturbances such as like depression and any number of other things that get pathologized. And these things infiltrate our lives so much that we may want to construct all new functional ways of supporting each other, and then we run into brick walls because we're still crashing against a failing, dying system. But it is a heavily armed and strategic failing, dying system, and people are getting killed left and right, whether it's by the police or white nationalist extremists. Oftentimes those two are the same, hand in hand, best buds, and they weaponize most of us. And we show up with our hearts and with our anger and with the vibrancy of what life we have held on to for all of the years that oppression and pain have just been washing up on our shores. And I find myself every day waking up to new crazy news. Like a couple days ago was that kid in Kenosha that was given water by the police and then went on to shoot multiple people and was only stopped by this one skater guy, Anthony Huber, who smacked him upside the head with a skateboard, almost disarmed him, but then the kid shot him. And then there's LA with the 3 trans femmes who were attacked on the street, videotaped doing it, uploaded by the men who attacked them onto social media, was recorded and can be seen on multiple platforms. And the police are like, not enough evidence. We don't have enough evidence. There's things happening all the time, and then, where every single day it's another murder of, like, I think that the number was 750 something murders in 200 and something days by police. So we are actually in an all-out war. We're in a war right now. Even if it doesn't necessarily look like it looks other places where it's just constant bombs being dropped, it's a different kind of war in this country. It's a little more insidious. It's a little more genocidal and disgusting and lacking any sort of empathy. Not to say that that's not true in other places, but it is us that is magnifying that largely across the world in our military pursuits, in the way that we mass manufacture guns and bombs and tear gases, so on and so forth. We sustain ourselves as a country via our military colonization and imperialism around the world. And then also our corporatocracy, where we've created a beast of an egregore. I want to talk about egregores for a second, and I'm hoping that I can make this understandable what this is. Some of you may know, some may not. But essentially what I understand it to be is a collective or a singular thought form that gets magnified and turned into something by the more people that are collectively adding to that thought form. So I would say white supremacy is a sort of egregore, as whiteness was a construct that was made to functionally dehumanize certain people in the species, which we are all one species, obviously, to dehumanize some of the species so that they could be subjugated over time. White supremacy didn't start out as white supremacy, but now it is something that is so deeply embedded in the spirits and psyches of so many people, myself included. I have to check my own internalized white supremacy because I'm a part of this system. There are people with different varied melanation have to struggle with certain aspects of white supremacy that have been embedded like seeds within us in order to break out of this larger structure that we are part of, and what I would call the egregore of white supremacy. Now, corporations, also egregore. At some point, and you can look this up, corporations made themselves a person. And in becoming a person, not only just a person, but they become a wealthy, organized person. So a wealthy, organized person can get away with a lot in terms of the law, especially when it's not an actual person that can be held accountable. A person can be held accountable because they are there and they can be held accountable in one way or another. When it is a board of directors or a sub corporation underneath the bigger corporation, a lot of things can get pushed to different sides, and then all of a sudden we're in the situation that we're in now, where there's absolutely no accountability to the people. The corporation has gotten extremely out of hand in so far that it was able to profit. Corporations, by and large, have been able to profit immensely off of something like a sustained pandemic where almost 200,000 people have died. The destruction of the economy, the stock market still going, even though so many things are shutting down, and many things will shut down for good. And our whole economy essentially is toppling right now. The economy in the way that we knew it. I personally do not think that that's a bad thing. I think that this gives us more opportunity to focus on the local level and sustaining each other and building what it is that we need in our direct vicinity. Sure, we won't have the perks. I've already started to notice things that I had just been used to being able to get easily around me start to disappear. And what a fucking privilege it is that I had access to any of those things in the first place, to be honest. Like, so many people around the world don't have access to all of these little things that just like make your life better. And you have to, and when you got used to them in your life, it just felt comfortable, and you didn't think a thing of it. And then all of a sudden it starts to disappear. Things start to disappear out of your life. And I'm like, okay, that's okay. I can dial it back, because in the long scope of things, we ultimately will be so much better, even if we don't have all of those little things that make our life comfortable and feel better or whatever. And so I've just been examining suffering, and because, it's very easy, or it's much easier for us in our culture to identify what we don't want, what is causing us anguish. It can take a little bit more sifting to find like the joy points or the gratitude points, which I highly recommend that we do. But I think that we are largely a society that does not pay enough attention to emotional literacy. And emotional literacy is heart-centered. And we're so focused on the mind, we're not focusing on the heart center. And when we are focused on the heart center, we're able to move our energy more effectively and at least even acknowledge what our energy is. And so, in a largely traumatized nation, because we are traumatized, whether your ancestors were on the side of murdering indigenous people to get the land or whatever, or if your ancestors were enslaved, there is trauma upon trauma upon trauma upon trauma in the past just few hundred years. And then there's this whole thing happening where, okay, if you make a birth chart for a country, United States in this example, all the planets are in a certain place at that time of the birth of that country. So currently, our country is coming into the return of Pluto. Pluto is this planet of transformation and deep structural change. And so in this way, right now, we're coming to a point of deep structural change in our country. And I know in my heart and my soul that this structural change cannot come without apology and atonement for all of the things that people want to pretend like they don't see and they don't understand. Like, please do not talk to me in this 2020 day and age and tell me you don't know what happened to the indigenous people of this country. Do not talk to me in this day and age and tell me that you don't know the destruction that imperialism and colonialism continues to spread on this world to this day. Do not talk to me like you don't know what has happened to Black people in this country and what continues to happen to Black people in this country. We don't need to see any more videos to know that the cops don't give a fuck and will literally kill anybody for any reason. And by anybody, I mean Black and brown people primarily. And if we know that this is the case, and we know that it's the case that these young, white, blue lives matter type kids are bringing their automatic rifles to protests, to shoot people because for sport, because racism, because who knows, or cutting people because, you know, in Portland, lots of people keep getting stabbed. Like, that's been happening. Look it up. Or this new GTA classic of running people down, whether it be the cop cars or just random people's cars. There's so many things that, rightfully so, keep us afraid, keep us feeling stunted, as if we can't move forward. We already have our energy loss via the generational trauma and just the trauma of like our lives, and then 2020 in and of itself. And then we feel like we're actually going head to head with cops, military, militiamen, white supremacists everywhere. Like Saguarte Land Trust, just a couple days ago, beautiful land trust doing Ohlone land rematriation work in the Bay Area, had a art installation on their fence surrounding their land that said indigenous land. 2 white men rolled up on that fence, decided to cut the string that was spelling indigenous, and I think that there was some kind of confrontation. They took pictures of the guys and They drove off in their little red truck. But the thing is that it's not a hop, skip, and a jump from these dudes just destroying like art, which is sacred, meaningful art, to take back land and rematriate it and give it back to the original stewards of the land to utilize the land and the ecosystem in the way that it had been utilized for thousands of years prior to colonization. For these white men to think that they're so fucking entitled to everything that they can just roll up, destroy it, and not only that, like, really physically put people in danger. Because you know if these white men have guns, or if they have a crew of people that get drunk at like on a Saturday and decide to roll up on people, that's fucking dangerous for the indigenous people who are just trying to like take care of the fucking land. And the fact that I have to explain this is just mind-boggling to me. And still, we could explain this all day. We could tell you about every single person that was killed just in this week, in the week before that, and you still wouldn't hear it. You still wouldn't hear it unless you felt personally affected by it. And I assume that anybody who is listening to me or watching this video understands what I'm talking about and probably is feeling some level of suffering because of this, because you're an empathetic being who understands the climate of what's happening now. I highly doubt people are watching this or listening to this and come and being like, oh my gosh, I never knew, I never experienced it. I mean, kudos to you if this is what you're listening to, but I think that I am speaking to the people who feel similar to the way I feel, which is tired, sad, somewhat hopeless. And this is coming from a person who has consciously spent the last 8 years working on developing tools for curbing depression, curbing suicidal ideation, for building up my energy reserves, for tackling chronic pain, chronic suffering within myself. And I'm so blessed to have been able to go on this path and to have so many tools in my belt that can help me move through hard times, hard emotional, mental, spiritual times. And also, if I don't have the tool, I have a list of people that I can call to get the healing help that I need. And I want everybody to be here with me. And I would hope that maybe in hearing some of the lessons from people like me, or the tools that we have to share, could lead you to not having to take as long to heal. Because I don't know about y'all, but I'm stubborn. And I like to do things the hard way. I like to learn the hard way. I'll make mistakes over and over again. I'll do really good for a while and then I'll fall back again. And I don't think that I'm abnormal in that. I think that a lot of us do that. And so it's many opportunities to fall down and then pick yourself back up. And I just want more people to feel like they can do that, and that they had time and energy to do that. And I think that right now, like this particular thing, this whole pandemic thing, it kind of put the whole world, or at least our species, very much into an initiatory period. And initiation basically meaning a ritual beginning of something. Being forced to kind of halt in some way, even though it was a staggered halt. Some places started before, some places started after, some places never fucking did it at all, which I would consider the US largely in that category, and that's largely the reason why none of the rest of the world wants to let us into their country, and I do not blame them. Nonetheless, this became a ritual period for all who choose to take that ritual time. All who are able to and allowed to take that ritual time. And I think that it is the responsibility of people who are able to take this ritual time to take it seriously, to understand that what we incubate in this moment sets the tone for the exponential movement of the world. Like, everything that we look at has been, like, in the microcosm of our species, has been exponentially grown. Like cell phones, going from non-existent in my lifetime to tiny computers that we are debating on whether we should implant them in our heads or not. In the span of 20, 30 years. And diseases, they were more spread out over time, and they've become more and more rapid, consecutive, over and over again, to the point now we're in global pandemic, and we have to assess everything globally because we are so globally intertwined with each other. Internet, from non-existent to everything for us right now. Like, everything, business is tied to internet. Our connections are tied to internet now, even more so because of the fact that we aren't supposed to be socially interacting as much. And so, like, classes, everything has moved to this internet realm. That went from not existing to everything that we do in such a short time. And so if we think about the track of transition and growth in that amount of time, and knowing that it's happening faster and faster and faster, by next year, the whole world could be different. The whole world could be a completely different place. We could have free energy and not run our energy off of oil and coal and things. We could have free energy that is transmitted to everybody, like Nikola Tesla. And the reason why a lot of these advancements are not happening, or not happening as fast as they could be happening, because I think that all of the technology is there, like the access to it. People understand how to access the quantum field, and if you understand how to access the quantum field, then you understand how to manipulate physical reality in an actual way, not just the secret, manifest it, believe it, and it is so. It's understanding that we are existing in energetics, and then understanding how to play with energetics. And then once you understand how to play with energetics, you can change reality. It sounds easy if I say it like that, but it's definitely something that takes practice and skill and fortitude. It's a lot. It's a lot for us, especially if we're also under the crushing system of the fascist white supremacy that is happening right now, where just atrocity after atrocity is happening every day. And if, like, I still run back and forth between my ability to wake up in the morning and just meditate. I have meditated every single day for 66 days now, and that feels like a huge accomplishment for me, and it's helped me stay grounded in my reality and my health and understanding my boundaries. But also, I used to meditate like first thing in the morning, and now I've been slipping, and I've been kind of just going on Instagram in the morning, or checking my phone, checking my texts, and talking to people in the morning before I do that. And without a doubt, every time I pop open Twitter, Instagram, anything, I'm immediately hit with some bullshit, some straight bullshit. And every day I'm like, should have meditated before I opened this fucking godforsaken app. I should have meditated first. And you know what? Still, I pick up my phone. I've done it for a week now. I still will do the meditation, but I pick up the phone first and I give myself anxiety right off the bat in the morning. And I think that again, don't think I'm alone in this. I don't think that I'm special in this. I think that this is something that a lot of us are confronted with because the availability is still there. Our entire system hasn't crumbled enough to take away our supreme modes of distraction, which are media, social media, news, connecting with people, emailing, texting, whatever. We have very little time where we're completely sheltered from that, and especially like right after I wake up in the morning and then just taking that in, and then I'm just digesting this for the rest of the day. And I swear, every single day, it's something crazy. I was like, and I mean, this is 2020 and this is foreseeable future stuff. Like, this is just what I think we are going to have to deal with, and we incarnated to deal with this and to understand our place in our dimension and the way that our energy exists outside of our dimension and how it's all affecting each other. Oh, I can't wait to talk more about dimensions, so hopefully it can make more sense. But right now I really want to keep it to this like suffering and hopelessness, because that's what I've been feeling so heavily for the past week, and battling myself just to even do this, you know? So I want to talk about what part of you is suffering. How can we like how many times do we actually like ask ourselves that question? Or creating a suffering meter where we create a numerical system, 1 through 10. How much am I suffering today? Pick that reason. Like, I'm suffering at a 6 today. Why am I suffering at a 6? What is the reason that's causing that suffering? What is it? A pain? Is it an emotion? Is it a triggering thought? Like, what is causing that? And then once we start to get used to like identifying these things, there's this potential to be strategic about changing our reaction to the suffering, because there are reactions to suffering that solidify the suffering, that prolong the suffering, and there's reactions to suffering that dull the suffering, that heal the suffering. And it all takes strategy and it all takes awareness. And it's hard to be aware when you don't have any energy. It's hard to be aware when you're tired and sad and depressed and you're feeling hopeless. And cultivating that energy, I believe, cannot start until you're really able to do whatever you gotta do to go on the path to self-discovery. And I would argue that the path to self-discovery for largely marginalized, oppressed people is gonna have to start with the pain. Whatever that is, whatever that suffering is, we're gonna have to identify it. And now there's this added thing of like, okay, we have to find some type of way to create therapeutic healing for this trauma and suffering. But we also don't want to reaffirm the trauma and suffering by choosing to live in it. And so that can be this like dangerous tightrope that you're walking when You want to identify the suffering, feel into it, allow yourself to experience whatever you need to experience, because you can only move through it. You're not going to jump around it. You're going to move through it. Otherwise, if you jump around it and you gloss over it and you try to pretend like it didn't happen, it'll fester away in your subconscious, and you will have to atone for it at some point. If not this life, then the next. So we are incentivized to acknowledge the suffering, but to not get caught in the addiction of processing it, of processing, over-processing our emotions, our hurts, our pains. And that's why I really enjoy the particular type of therapy that I've been going to, which is NET, neuro-emotional technique. And it really just gets to the heart of the situation by following the somatics in your body and the neurological impulses in your body, the truth in your body, and helping you clear the channels, not to get over everything necessarily, but to be okay with what has happened. Because once you are okay with what is happening, you can actually move the energy. You can actually move forward. For instance, in the beginning, when I was doing this therapy, I was having a really hard time with the fact that my room was not as clean as I needed it to be in order to do the work that I needed and wanted to do. And then, because my room wasn't clean, I would beat myself up for not feeling like I had the energy or the body strength to be able to clean my room, because at that time I was going through much more chronic pain than I am going through now. And so I couldn't clean my room. I couldn't do the work that I needed to do. And all I could do was beat myself up for not being able to take care of what I needed and knew that I needed to take care of, which was cleaning my space. And so we did our NET around that for a few weeks. And just recently, I actually had this day, and my doctor said that this would come, where I was sitting in my room. My room was kind of a mess this time. And I was like, you know what? It's okay. It's okay that my room's a mess right now. It's okay. I'm not an inherently bad person because my room is a mess. I know that when I have the energy to do it, I will clean this room and I will be able to move forward on my projects. And it was profound to me, because really these sessions are very short and you may not notice right away what is exactly happening in your like reality. But in that moment, I was like, wow, I was so harsh on myself before. I was so harsh on myself, and the beating up on myself on top of not being able to do these things and being in pain and yada yada caused me to not be able to clean this room. And in that moment, right when I was just completely okay with like, this room, it's a mess right now and I'm going to be okay with that. In that moment, turned it around, started cleaning my room, felt incentivized and energetically ready to clean my room. And that has happened on multiple occasions with multiple things that have triggered me, that have made me feel like I'm less worthy of life or whatever, because it'll be like little things or big things in your life, but what they all like come down to is like you believing in your worth, or you believing that you're okay despite XYZ that's happening around you. And I found this particular type of therapy so liberating because I didn't have to explain myself so much. I have gone to therapists before, and it just didn't vibe with me to have to explain and go through the trauma to help this person understand my trauma so that they might be able to potentially give me some nugget of wisdom and help that would transmute my trauma into me being okay with whatever my situation was. This particular brand of therapy has really changed so many things. Not in like dramatic, my whole life is different. What my life is on the path definitely to being dramatically different because of this, because of the channels that have been able to open, because of this particular type of therapy. But mostly just the thought that it's just okay. It's just okay that I'm alive. It's okay that I am doing the best that I can in what it is that I'm doing. It's okay. That's what led me to be able to make this podcast. That's what led me to be able to keep going at all. Because like I said, I in lifetimes have a proclivity to just ending it because fuck the world. But not fuck the world, because we are here for a reason and we have things to do. And I believe that I have things to do. I believe that everybody has something to contribute to this situation in whatever way that they have shown up. And I think that we will all be collectively better off if we can integrate that as a reality. We'll also be collectively better off if we can distinguish the difference between will and ego. These two things are incredibly important. From what I understand, will is the intentional movement of our truest self. The intentional movement of our truest self and what is best for our truest self. And our truest self is the oneness. It's the oneness that is everything. Not just our species, not just our earth, but like the oneness that is the connectedness of everything, like multidimensionality. We are all actually connected because everything is consciousness and the quantum field, the energy that is between matter. Everything is connected of this one thing. And so that has a movement and that has intention. And to follow that intention, hopefully, is for the highest good of all. And that is the intention that you would set. Whereas the ego is tied to our mortal reality, our physical reality, our identity, our self-perception. The ego is based in the physicality. The ego is the thing that is afraid to die. The ego is the thing that is afraid to be hurt, afraid to be seen in negative light, so on and so forth. And there are healthy doses of that. We need that to stay in check with our physical reality. But we also need to focus and be intentional with our will so that we can direct that energy into something, ultimately, like I said, is for the highest good. Because if you just run with the ego, then you could end up running with white supremacy, fascism, genocide. And so we must get acquainted with what our true self is, what our purpose is. And again, bringing it back around, because we are in a society of better understanding our traumas and our suffering, that is a place that we can start. We can start by beginning to understand what it is that we're suffering about, what it is that's causing our suffering. How can we be strategic about supporting ourselves through this suffering? And I took some notes, so I'm going to look at this a little bit. Suffering is a correction to get us to perceive reality more clearly and properly. I felt that that was a really interesting thing that I learned recently, or that I heard and resonated with me, and so I consider that learning. That suffering, and I noticed that today because, again, I've been dealing with these constant things coming up where I understand that I have many levels of privilege that allow me to walk through this world safer than other people. But because I am so empathetic, because I am a physical empath or clairsentient mostly, I take the things on of different people and it settles into my physical being. And I have always been oriented towards the most oppressed, the most marginalized of people, because half of my lineage falls in that category, and also because I'm just like more available and open to pain. Like I understand it and I feel it worldwide. And so to understand, like, if I see an image, I don't know if other people feel this way, but if I see an image, I can feel what it felt like. And that is painful and jarring, and thus why I don't watch things like gore and horror and things, because it just embeds itself into my psyche so quickly and I feel it so viscerally that it is not worth it for me to let that into my spectrum. And because it causes suffering. And so today I was having a lot of suffering coming from the stories that I was hearing of just like so many marginalized people, and then just like the people that are outside of my house, because I live in this area of San Francisco that is just the wealth gap is extreme, where there's just the most impoverished people living in their tent encampments and the most rich people that are living in million dollar homes. And so I feel the push and pull of both things, and I also have a sense that even the most rich are not necessarily the happiest people, because I think that there's so much of humanity that doesn't understand, and they equate like their happiness, their joy, and the perfection of their life coming from achievements or dreams or milestones that are made. But if you are a human, chances are any dream, achievement, milestone, material thing that you get, once you achieve it, you're gonna feel a pit in you, because there's supposed to be more. Because the more is growth, the more is spiritual joy, like the spiritual type of joy that we can get from life, from multitude of things. And so I'm feeling it from multiple angles. I think that these super wealthy people are not as happy as they would like the entire world to believe. And they're also inundated with the energy of the people who are serving them in this horrible pandemic time, because all of these, or vast majority of these rich people, do not know how to take care of themselves. Not at all. They have to have somebody do every aspect of their life for them, because they had gotten so used to doing whatever it was that they needed to do to advance their capital, to advance their profit, in order to get these fancy $1 million homes here in San Francisco, in this place that people all over the world dream about and think about and have some ideal about. These people are not necessarily happy. They're making it, they're getting by, they're living comfortably, but that doesn't necessarily equate to true spiritual joy. The people on the street, they're not necessarily happy. They don't even have their basic necessities met, and they're being hit with the pandemic. They're being hit with fentanyl-laced drugs that are just killing people with overdoses. They're being hit with smoke from wildfires from all around us, even though, granted, grateful for at this moment, they have calmed down. The wildfires have seemed to have subsided somewhat, and the air quality has been much better here for the past couple of days. But fire season isn't even technically over or begin yet, you know? Like last year, I think it began in September, so we still have a good couple of months to potentially deal with the dryness, the drought that causes more wildfires all over this country, particularly this state. And so there's bound to be more happening. There's bound to be more suffering, more reason to feel depressed and hopeless every single day. Because this Pluto return for our country, this is not like a couple month thing. This is like a couple years thing. Like, I would say we're really gonna have to like do some heavy lifting in terms of our spiritual reality and our physical reality in the next 5 years. It's gonna be work. And so this is why we can't be looking to some potential end, some potential dream of this all just being over. We need to orient ourselves to how to be okay with today, how to be okay with tomorrow, whatever comes up tomorrow. How are we going to support each other through all of this? How are we going to maintain our energy levels so that we can support each other, so that we can support ourselves? How are we going to get the help that we need? And I really, really look forward to like helping be a part of connecting these webs, because there's so many people who have so much to offer in terms of like healing faculties and tools and things that they can share. And it's a lot of these people just don't always have the energy. And we don't have like, so there's it's just constant spiral of like, how do we get the energy to connect and do the mutual aid that we need to do to sustain ourselves through apocalypse after apocalypse. And I think I know that it all has to start with our path to self-discovery. And whatever that looks like for you, I hope that you're willing to do the work. And I hope that it doesn't take you as long as it has taken me, because I just now am starting to feel like I'm getting somewhere. Like I'm not constantly in the throes of complete hopelessness. And when I do feel some slight sadness, depression, hopelessness, I have a laundry list of tools that I can utilize in order to pull myself out of it. And whatever you need to do to get there, to have the tools, to have the strategies, I would just beg and encourage you to believe that that's worth it, to believe that it's worth it, to care about yourself, to find what it is that you're passionate about, what it is that you're suffering from, to be able to communicate that effectively to the people around you who care about you, who are invested in your health and well-being. Because the more that we can be vulnerable and compassionate with each other, the better off we will all be collectively. And we need these structures outside of just the rage. And trust me, I'm a Sagittarius with an Aries rising and a Libra moon. And the Libra moon keeps it cute, but it's still just an air sign blowing the fire. And what does air do to fire? Makes it bigger. And so I personally have a proclivity to anger, to rage, to wanting to go wild on situations. And I constantly have to remember to breathe, to continue meditating, to continue grounding myself, to utilizing the tools so that these emotions aren't flowing over me all the time. And the rage that we have collectively is powerful and valid. I don't want to tell anybody to not have this rage, but I do want to say that it is not safe out there. It's not safe. I want us to continue gathering our energy and working together and letting that manifest in whatever it manifests. I am not into policing tactics. That's not really my thing. But what I will say is that these cops don't give a fuck about us. The cops want all dissenters dead. The white supremacist militia, they are backed by people who have already made it clear that they're willing to do stupid shit with their money, like funding a border wall that never got built and funded like buying yachts for old rich white men or whatever the fuck they did. People have already, and if I'm gonna post this picture of a map with little marks on it all over the country of people who donated to that kid who just murdered people in Wisconsin. He drove from Illinois to Wisconsin to murder people with his fucking automatic rifle that he was too young to own. And you know what? He's a national hero to these white supremacists. These people just sitting in their homes donating to racism because whatever. I don't even know. I don't want to go down the path of whatever it is that they're thinking about because I literally don't care. If you're here to defend the police, if you're here to defend the fascist system that ultimately destroys you as well as me, I don't even have a conversation. I'm not even trying to have a conversation with you. I'm trying to have a conversation with the people who are, like me, willing to figure out how to go inside of themselves in order to protect our energy, in order to hopefully make this world a better place for ourselves and for future generations, and to hopefully just not have the entire species collapse, to hopefully create systems that are mutually beneficial to us and our ecosystems. And it takes a lot of practice to get to a point where you have the energy to do that. And so I just want to encourage us, whatever it is that you choose to do, I support you in doing that if it is for your highest good and it makes you feel better and yada yada. But like I was telling my friend recently, you're more valuable to this world alive. And these white supremacists and these cops and these fascists don't give a fuck about you being alive. In fact, they would rather you not be alive so that you couldn't utilize your skills and talents to make this world a better place. Because some people don't want this world to be a better place. They just want to rape and pillage until they can go and try and colonize another world or ecosystem. It doesn't make sense to me, and I don't back that. I want us to have the energy to take care of each other and to take care of ourselves. And that there's no way around that. It takes the reflection of ourselves and being able to reflect to others and to witness their reflection back and to accept whatever suffering comes in for us and to understand that there's something in that suffering that can teach us something, that can lead us to the next lesson. That I'm not saying that like suffering is good or anything. I'm just saying that it just comes up to teach us something, to show us the way. And today, my suffering came up, my sadness came up, my hopelessness came up to show me that I had the tools to pull myself out of it, that I could talk to my spirits and they could help me with the tools to pull myself out of it. And in doing that, I feel much better now and I'm able to record. And then I'm able to continue doing this work of connecting and bringing us together and working on this actually being a better world. So this is all just something to think about, something to chew on. And I really hope that you just take care of yourself in the best way possible, that you know that you're worthy of being alive and you're worthy of being loved just for you being you, and that this world is a better place with you in it and your contribution to it. And so whatever we got to do to stay alive and protect each other is what we're going to do. Period. Blessings to the spirits of these places, the original inhabitants of these places, the one consciousness, our guides, guardians, and divine forces, the black flame, and the mothers. Thank you to all who turn their attention this way. To those who continue to stay with us, thank you for your continued guidance and support. To all who need to return their attention elsewhere, please do so, and blessings on your journey. Blessings, Ashe, Aho, farewell.